Hello, and thanks for joining us for the Data Center Summit session, How Digitization is Driving Sustainability in Data Centers of the Future, sponsored by Schneider Electric. I'm David Chernikoff, Senior Editor of Data Center Frontier. Now, before we get started, just a bit of housekeeping. To begin, let me explain how you can participate in the session. First off, if you have any technical difficulties during the event, please put your question in the questions window and our technical experts will help you out. We do recommend disabling any pop-up blocking software extensions in your browser, as they can cause issue with the webinar player. Additionally, we welcome your questions during this session. We will answer as many questions as possible during the Q&A session that follows. But please feel free to send in your questions at any time. To do this, simply type your question into the Ask a Question window on the side of your screen and hit the Submit button. Also, please be aware that today's session is being recorded and you'll be notified by email when the archive is available. Lastly, at the end of each session, there is a screen that will pop up asking you to fill out a quick survey. Please make sure to take the survey, which will help us provide guidance on future content that we'll continue to provide. Now, let me introduce you to our speakers for this session. We have John Gould, Director of Business Development Software, Schneider Electric, and Satish Nukla, Director of Asset Product Management, CyrusOne. You can learn more about our speakers by clicking on the Meet Our Speakers tab within the webinar player. And now, John, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, David. And thank you to everyone else joining us, whether it's lunchtime or maybe still morning, depending on where you're at in the US or maybe around the world. Today we have an interesting session for you. So Satish and I are going to step you through some different views on sustainability and software and digitization. And we're going to loop Satish in here in a minute. He's going to be a great resource for us. Really excited about that session. I'm going to step you through a few slides initially, though. So wanted to take a look at the current state of climate-related regulations, the evolution of DCIM even before I was in the industry. And then we're going to have a fireside chat with Satish, which I'm really excited about. And then lastly, we'll wrap with an overview of data center software solutions. And then hopefully that generates a ton of Q&A with the crowd that's out there. So don't be shy. We want this to be as interactive as possible. Please add any questions you may have as we step through this. So obviously IT is really growing, right? IT is a very big term, and it's leading to an increase, a significant increase of sustainability regulations and initiatives, right? We kind of see that leading out in Europe with EED and some of the other measures. The EU Commission says 2.7% of European electricity usage is driven by data centers, and that's growing pretty rapidly. Since 2011, there's been over 1,200 ESG regulations that have been released globally. And 80% of CIOs will have performance metrics tied to the sustainability of the IT organization. That one is really interesting, right? I have met CIOs in other instances, and they were given a directive of they need to be 30% more sustainable. What does that really mean? Sustainability is a big term. Hopefully we're going to help unpack that a little bit today. But when you start seeing the performance of C-level employees tied to sustainability, sustainability is now more real than it's ever been. And while we're trying to do that while growing at the same time is definitely a challenge. So the media coverage of energy cost and shortages and regulations has been quite extensive. Unsure if you're familiar with the EED, that stands for the Energy Efficiency Directive in the EU, right? You may say, well, that's the EU, doesn't really impact us yet, but it is going to be heading this direction. There's some bills in California, SB 253 and SB 261, that don't necessarily, are not that similar to the EED, but are going to lead to some climate disclosures and some efficiency and sustainability disclosures for companies if you want to do business in California. So they are going to be much more relevant. And I've read a lot of articles lately around how maybe the limiting factor of data center growth / IT growth is really going to be power availability, right? You can't turn the corner without hearing about AI in our personal and professional endeavors, but AI is really driving some of that explosive growth, and power availability is going to be a challenge that we're going to have to face here in the near future. So just how much is it growing, right? If you look at this, we're expecting it to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 16% year over year, right? And you can see these different regions of the globe are kind of broken up. So this is Asia Pac, the blue is EMEA, and then obviously some explosive growth there in the Americas. And if you look at that, we're expecting that to grow from 382 terawatt hours to 802 in the next 3 years. That growth, again, just that growth over that time represents the total energy consumption of France in 2022. So that's quite a bit of growth, and we have to do that as sustainably as possible. Our investors are demanding it, the communities are demanding it, and so that's the real challenge. And how do we do that? What tools do we have to get there? So some of the sustainability regulations that we're seeing, 43% of companies out there, according to the IDC, do not have a process in place to report on environmental sustainability metrics. I'd actually guess that the number would be quite a bit higher than that. So that's a really interesting number to me. But with that drive where we're going to have to report on these sustainability metrics, right? With that drive that's going to take us there in the near future, having those tools in place is going to be important. According to the Uptime Institute, 88% consider IT and data center power consumption to be a top reporting priority. Sometimes people have the data in place, sometimes they don't. And then obviously 56%, according to Sustainable IT, will be required to support sustainability mandates. That's no surprise to me. This definitely lines up with what we're seeing out there. And actually, if you unpack the Energy Efficiency Directive from the EU, there's about 25 different metrics and data points that they're looking for. They really focus on energy use, energy sustainability, and even water use, right? So we're going beyond energy now and starting to take a look at how water is consumed in these sites. And we've all heard of PUE in the past, right? Power utilization effectiveness or efficiency. Well, WUE is becoming one of those key metrics: water utilization effectiveness or efficiency, however you want to define that. So again, really, really interesting stuff. Let's take a look at what else we're seeing out there. So we're going to take a look now at the evolution of DCIM and what DCIM 3.0 is and why Schneider is bringing that to the market and has brought that to the market. So way back in the 1980s, again, I'm going to date myself here a little bit. I've been present for two of these waves. I was not present for the wave in the 1980s. But in the 1980s, we had a very distributed kind of rack-based UPS approach, right? Servers everywhere kind of doing their own thing. And we consider the monitoring and management of that space really DCIM 1.0. Well, about 2 decades later, right, you see the dot-com bubble grow. You see centralizing of the IT into these regional and enterprise type data centers. And there became a need for redefining the data center and for managing what server is where in the rack and PUE and power and cooling challenges, right? That was really the 2.0 wave of DCIM. And this is when I kind of entered into the industry in the early 2000s. Well, obviously, I don't think I have to restate this, right? The early 2020s, the world was definitely very unique and different from a time before that. So with the pandemic, right, and all of us working from home and hybrid work becoming more of the norm and remote work becoming more of the norm, that made these remote IT infrastructure closets that are supporting these remote workers much more critical. So no longer was it just, I need to have this one big data center and focus on that, right? It's a very distributed IT environment. You had regional data centers, big data centers, cloud data centers, and then more localized. And having the ability to have awareness over these different types of infrastructure, different types of environments, we think demanded a new approach to DCIM and really being able to mix in the security and the sustainability in with that hybrid-based approach was a new challenge. If you actually unpack DCIM and if you look at what the type of data that you need to drive many of these sustainability metrics, whether that's PUE, whether that's WUE, whether that's measuring the total power used in a data center, you really have to kind of bridge both sides of the facilities and IT fence or infrastructure, or maybe IT and OT infrastructure. So you have to take data from systems that typically maybe were not married together. Well, DCIM sits in a very interesting space because it sits right in the middle of IT and OT, or IT and facilities. And many times when it's deployed, it has access to data from a building management system or an enterprise management system or some of the IT systems that may be in place. So much of the data that you need to drive these sustainability dashboards, these sustainability metrics, this measurement of how efficient and sustainable am I today versus where am I going in the future, DCIM is a great place that has much of that data already sitting in that space. And that's why this is a very interesting leverage point for driving sustainability metrics. So DCIM supports sustainability goals. It does it out of the box. It does it in a very secure manner. Has the ability to track PUE, energy, carbon footprint, measure power use down to the subsystem level, right? So maybe getting below the UPS, getting below the smart power strip, and have the ability to standardize that data and be able to enable you to use that data and turn it into business intelligence, whether that is for sustainability or other purposes or integrated into other systems. There is an eco data center customer in Sweden that was able to leverage these tools and drive to be the most sustainable data center operator with a PUE of 1.15. Pretty exciting case study that's available out there if you'd like to take a look and dive a little deeper into that topic. Unpacking it again once more, the idea with DCIM 3.0 is it's going to make the reporting against these sustainability metrics, whether you're ahead of the curve or whether you're going to be impacted with some of the new regulations, right? That's going to happen to all of us. This makes it easy to do and out of the box. So sometimes building these data points and these dashboards can be very complex. We've tried to take some of the complexity out of that and bring our expertise to the table when it comes to power and cooling and sustainability, and have the ability to bring in the data as easily as possible and then create these views and these dashboards as easy as possible. So that's really our approach. When we take a look at DCIM 3.0, that's why we've created this new wave of DCIM. Created about 18 months ago, we continue to refine it. And this sustainability edition, I think, is key and is one of the newer additions. So with that, I'm going to bring in one of my peers here into the conversation. Satish Nukla is with CyrusOne. He's very forward-thinking. He's a believer in sustainability, like I am. I always get inspired when I talk with Satish. So Satish, do you mind giving us a little intro? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at CyrusOne.
Sure. Thanks for inviting me, John. Really appreciate it. Great conversation. Looking forward to some of the questions and debates over sustainability. So I'm Satish Nukala. I'm a product director at CyrusOne, specifically focused around operational technology. And I've been in the industry for about 20 plus years and working with various co-location data center providers and information technology companies. So my journey has been, throughout the process, very closely aligned data centers, and I've seen consistently these energy demands go up year over year. And with the AI, I cannot imagine what those power consumption levels are going to be in future. So sustainability is paramount, not only just for the business sake. I take it personally, leave some, corporate responsibility and personal responsibility for next generation, right? How we are preparing the next generation is quite important for me as well. So that's about my background. Back to you, John.
I love it. Yeah. What's interesting about Satish is if you don't know his background, maybe you can LinkedIn stalk him later, but he kind of followed the industry. So he was in the enterprise space, building and managing data centers there. And then Satish, I'm sure you saw that move to cloud and colo, and you kind of followed that same journey. So I think that's really interesting and gives you a unique viewpoint.
Yeah, very similar to, dating back early, 90s and late 90s, a lot of mainframe to distribute compute, that transition happened. And then now back to cloud computing, so to speak, a centralized compute platform. The overall IT footprint is increasing tremendously, right? It didn't reduce by any means. it's growing at the same speed as a chipset. Transistors are multiplying in a CPU socket. So, and with AI, it's a new realm altogether. How we are going to see the IT workloads go up through the skyrocket significantly. It's going to be exciting times ahead.
That's interesting. You're right. Yeah, the power growth ties directly to the power requirements of the chip growth. So those go hand in hand. That is interesting. It's a great way to track it. So before we dive into the main topic of today's discussion, I wanted to play a little fun game with you. I wanted the audience to know a little more about you as a person. So no right or wrong answers. I'm going to throw 3 rapid fire questions out there just to get to know a little more about you. So number 1, if you had a theme song, something that pumps you up, right? Baseball players, sometimes they have a walkout song that they play every time they come up to bat. What would your theme song, your walkout song, your pump up song be?
It's actually my son's song. We listen to going to school, drop off, and coming back every day. Green Sally Up by Moby. It's a Bryce Harper's walkout song. My son is a huge Phillies fan, so that's my song as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Phillies fanatics. I get it. That's great.
Yeah.
I know you're a bit of a foodie, so this could be a tough one. The old days called the death row meal. If you had one last chance to eat one meal, and that was gonna be your last meal ever, what's on the plate? What meal are you eating as your last meal?
Yeah, sure. I'm from India, probably some of you guessed, specifically South India, and from my city, Hyderabad, where there's a special dish called biryani. It's actually very world famous now. That would be the best meal. I always love eating biryani and making biryani as well. So that is my go-to last meal.
I've had it. That's good to know. I didn't know that was your last meal. And that was my next question. Do you make it? So it's good to know you make your own. Last one. If you could get one plane ticket for free to anywhere in the world, where are you headed and where are you going?
California. I always want to, go back to California as much as I can. Redwoods is the go-to place for me. I love, walking around in their park, and I don't know what it is. It just brings me outer world experience there, and makes me more connected to sustainability and environmental responsibility. I just love to go back there as much as I can.
That's awesome. All right, enough of my shenanigans. Thanks for being a good sport. We'll move on to the topic now that everyone's here to hear about. You mentioned it earlier, and I know we've actually discussed this in the past, but would love for you to share with the audience, why is sustainability important to you? I know why it's important to me. I know why it's important to my company, but why is it important to you, Satish?
For both professional and multiple, personal reasons, right? From a CyrusOne standpoint, right? CyrusOne is, very laser focused on sustainability because it aligns perfectly with our commitment to long-term business resiliency and responsible corporate practices. In the data center sector, where energy demands are significant, especially with the AI workloads now, focusing on sustainability helps us mitigate environmental impacts, enhance operational efficiencies, and reduce cost. So we are taking a proactive approach not only to drive innovation in our operational practices and technologies, but also ensure we meet market demands and regulatory requirements effectively. So we are trying to fulfill our responsibility to the communities where we operate.
That's interesting. I'm of the same mind. I have 3 kids at home. I believe in sustainability. I want to leave this world as fit for purpose as possible for them. So I believe that business-wise and personally as well. And it's good to hear you're kind of along those same lines. You mentioned customers. How are you seeing sustainability being exampled or requested from your customer base? Is it important? Are you seeing it from more requirements? Or customers more and more interested as time goes along in how sustainably you're delivering these solutions that you're delivering?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Our customers increasingly look for sustainable practices from their service providers. It's due to growing environmental concerns, right? They particularly value energy efficiency, the use of renewable energy, reduced carbon footprint, and sustainable building practices. Some of the things that we do is waterless cooling is one initiative that we are, embarking across all our new facilities. And our customer wants to see real-time sustainability data, right, such as carbon emissions, power consumption, water usage data. So our focus in these areas, we not only meet their expectations, but also support them in achieving their targets, which is increasingly critical under the watchful eye of stakeholders and as well as regulatory bodies.
No, that's great. And I in the work I've done with CyrusOne, it's good to know that CyrusOne puts its money where its mouth is in the sustainability side of the business. I've really seen a commitment there. In the past, I've always viewed kind of transparency as one of the big battlegrounds, how much data you're willing to share in the colo space. Do you view sustainability as one of those next big battlegrounds? Do you view that coming out of the pipe? Is that something you see as something you're going to competing out there in the market with?
We already are, right? I mean, it's it's showing our responsibility in the space of data center is critical. This is our customers are expecting us to show all these initiatives in real time, the data that corroborates our efforts, right? So I have no doubt the next generation of data centers, whether it's regulatory compliance or customer requirements, have to be highly efficient. PUE's reduction is a key, and water usage reduction is a key as well.
No, that's really interesting. I mentioned earlier SB 253 and SB 261. For those of you who are not familiar with those are climate disclosure laws that California is passing, where if you're above a certain size of business and you want to do business in California, you're not going to have to meet, there's no teeth to it yet, but you will you'll have to begin to report on some of the sustainability metrics that we've discussed. How do these new legislations impact CyrusOne in your operations, or how do you envision they will in the future as we see more regulation in the U.S., Satish?
Yeah, so 253, 261 have a significant impact on how we manage our planning and environmental reporting, right? These laws demand greater transparency in how we communicate our environmental risk and mitigation strategies. So we're investing heavily in advanced data monitoring and management systems to provide accurate real-time reporting. As more such regulations come into effect across the U.S., we are being proactive in compliance approach positions, and we're positioning ourselves as a leaders in sustainability data center operations. So yeah, it's taking the back-end specific steps in bringing the data together and taking a proactive approach is what we're leading in mitigating some of these regulatory requirements.
That's great. And obviously I know CyrusOne, everyone knows CyrusOne's a global company. So I'm sure you're facing some of the same challenges in EMEA and some of the other locales that are maybe a little ahead of where the US is at in some of these energy efficiency regulations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's get to the meat and potatoes of this. How are you leveraging software within CyrusOne for energy management and to drive sustainability? I know this is something that I feel like you're at the fulcrum of that. So I'd be really interested to get your take on where you're seeing the first initial value and where you're trying to leverage software.
So we're using the latest, cutting edge software like EcoStruxure Resource Advisor and Aviva UOC platforms to not only boost our energy management and sustainability initiatives, but these tools are giving us vital insights into our operational efficiency, energy consumption, and enabling us to optimize our energy use and reduce the cost. Especially, Aviva solutions are crucial for integrating operational technology with IT business applications. That platform, the whole capabilities, designed and developed on ISA 95 and ISA 18.2 architecture, essentially streamlining our sustainability efforts and managing our resources in real time. It bridges the gap between IT and OT, so we can make more accurate and data-driven decisions.
No, that's really interesting. And I know, just in speaking with you, you're not focused only on sustainably using resources, but also operational sustainability and efficiency as well when you leverage software.
I think they go hand in glove, right? I mean, operational efficiency essentially is going to be the foundational requirement on how to maintain equipment efficiently and how to make the equipment run at an optimal performance, and especially reduce the overconsumption where unnecessary. So maintaining efficient operational practices lead to efficient and operations and efficient performance of the assets itself, which will reduce the carbon footprint for us.
No, that's interesting. So look, I think we've set a record for the fewest number of times that AI has been said in a presentation recently, but I got to ask one question around it. How is AI impacting the CyrusOne business, its ability to keep up with sustainability goals, and more broadly, maybe some of the design and infrastructure needs that you're seeing from the marketplace out there? I'm kind of curious, kind of your view on AI.
For us, it's a dual impact, right? On one side, it drives our significant operational efficiencies, which support our sustainability goals. Like I mentioned, Aviva UOC includes AI-driven predictive maintenance, which is helping us anticipate equipment failures, essentially reducing the downtime and energy waste. On the other hand, as AI workloads increase, so does the demand for power, which is a big challenge to our sustainability goals. So to manage this, we are utilizing efficient OT power management systems to handle these loads effectively. And we've always considered renewable energy sources, waterless cooling systems to meet these increased demands on sustainability. Ultimately, I think AI helps us manage our energy needs more efficiently from a technology standpoint. Right? Our operations can be efficient and environmentally friendly. So we're in a very tricky, or not tricky, I would say, in a unique spot where AI power demands are increasing our footprint. At the same time, we are using AI to run our operations efficiently.
I like the duality of that, right? It's really changing your business, changing our entire industry, right? Many of the changes that we've seen since ChatGPT was released less than 2 years ago, right? You're being able to drive some benefits inside your business as well from that same technology. So it's good to see kind of the impact, but also the benefits that you're driving from it.
Yeah, huge productivity increase for sure.
So that was the last question I had. Is there any one final thought you'd like to leave us with? I know we've kind of covered a lot of different topics, including your favorite foods and your take on AI and how you're leveraging software to drive sustainability. Kind of curious, any last words from you, Satish?
I think data center industry is going to go through a lot of transformation in the next year to 2 years. The demand for power is going to be significantly increasing because of the AI workload. So as a technologist, try to leverage some of the best practices that are already implemented in other industries, right? ISA 95, ISA 18.2 are very at the forefront. Similar to your DSIM coverage that you discussed about, computational fluid dynamics play a huge role, especially in the DSIM space. We use it day in, day out to make sure we don't have any hotspots, that we are efficiently running the cooling infrastructure. So technology is the bottom line. Technology has to be used. Data-driven decisions are key to achieving sustainability goals.
I did have one follow-up question. You triggered this. I think ISA that you've mentioned a few times, ISA 95, was it? Is that the one you mentioned? It's not super well known inside of our industry, but we think it has amazing application. It's something that we at Schneider are very, very familiar with. Can you unpack that just a little bit for those in the audience who are not familiar with it? Just kind of share the value and how maybe you're seeing it being leveraged.
Yeah. So basically, ISA 95 is at the core is connecting the manufacturing especially it's used in manufacturing and oil and gas industry, where operational technology is providing enough data to business applications to make informed decisions, whether it's supply chain management or the entire operations management efficiently. For the most part, these systems are siloed in their own space. The architecture defines how to integrate operational technology with IT business applications for efficient decision making. And 18.2 specifically focuses on alarm management, where you have multiple SCADA and control systems providing a lot of insights, alarms, and telemetry data. Harnessing that data, bringing that together into a system of systems like Aviva, right, and providing actionable insights to our operators is a very key to our operational efficiency and excellence. It reduces the time it takes to react, and not only that, it helps with the efficiency efforts, right? Like any wastage can be stopped quickly.
That's great to hear. We're taking best practices where we can and applying them in the data center space to make some jobs. Well, I really appreciate you joining today. That was a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you being open with how CyrusOne is using software and AI to drive sustainability and efficiency in their operations and use of resources. So we have a few more wrap-up slides here, Satish, but really appreciate you sitting in today.
Thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you, Satish. Let's keep on moving. So why is Schneider in the software business, right? And the sustainability business? The main reason, and again, this is according to John Gould, Schneider is a very big company. So you may get some different opinions or answers out there depending on who you ask. But to me, digitization accelerates decarbonization, right? It can disrupt, and disrupt sometimes has a negative connotation. But in this case, I think disrupt can have very positive connotations. So digitization to us spreads across software and digital services and sustainability. And we think only by digitizing that entire value chain of infrastructure, of power, of cooling, and being able to drive business intelligence across it, right? That's the way you're really going to get a head start, a leap forward into decarbonization. So just taking a look a little bit at the Schneider software stack. Most people don't know Schneider Electric as a software company, but if you take all of the software and services from software and add it together, we're in the maybe top 30 of largest software companies in the world. Many of you hopefully have heard of the EcoStruxure brands, and I'm not going to talk about the specific parts and pieces, but Schneider Electric has made many investments across the software industry to add to our portfolio of solutions that we can bring to the table for customers. And may not be aware of it. The reason why we're doing this, right? Historically, with our EcoStruxure platform, if you look at customers, whether they're in a building or whether they're in a data center, you're typically at certain places in the life cycle of that building or data center. You may be in the design phase or the build phase or the operate and maintain phase, right? Some customers are in all of these at different sites. But our EcoStruxure platform, if you break down the personas across these different life cycle stages, we're only able to serve certain players in these spaces, right? We felt like there were some gaps. So Schneider Electric has made investments out there and made acquisitions and integrations and brought new players to the table, new software solutions to the table to be able to fill out and serve all of these personas in the life cycle of a critical building, of a critical data center, whether you're focused on designing as sustainable of a data center as you can, whether you're focused on driving sustainability through the construction, or whether you're focused on operating and maintaining as sustainably as possible. We have offers across that entire life cycle. And that's really strategically why we've made the investments where we have and where we've chosen to try to fill in some of these gaps. Again, I'm not going to go into all of these, but just keep that in mind when you think about our strategy when it comes to software. That's in services. That's really what we're trying to do. That's really what our goal is in bringing this all together. Again, not an all or nothing approach, so pick and choose what you'd like. And at that, I think we're going to go ahead and move on into the Q&A. And I have not been keeping an eye on the Q&A question queue. So Dave, is that something you can run us through?
We're here for you. And of course, since you said you were going to have the least AI-centric conversation ever, we're going to start with an AI question. So how can AI be leveraged to drive sustainability? And this is open to both of you.
Yeah, I think I'll take that first. Satish did a great job in talking about AI driving operational efficiency and sustainability. I'm going to go a little bit different direction because Satish already did a great job covering from that point of view. One of the things that we see a real benefit of AI is being able to take AI and have it make automated decisions or recommendations on how to operate a data center as efficiently as possible. So there's solutions out there where you can take in temp sensor data, build a digital twin of the data center, take cooling unit data from the BMS, plug in the SLAs that you want to deliver to the racks, and then have AI help you understand the influence of all of this equipment in the digital twin and make some automated control decisions or recommendations on where to turn things up or down to do that as sustainably as possible. I think it's a really interesting way to drive software into legacy sites and really turn down the energy use at those sites. Satish, any other kind of examples you wanted to add to using AI to drive sustainability?
Yeah, I think you hit the topic right on the head, right? You said it well. AI is a very powerful tool. AI needs to be integrated into operations so that, it can give us actionable and more smarter outcomes. For example, in near future, I would say, AI can help manage our cooling systems more intelligently. If we feed real-time data coupled with external weather conditions, internal load demands, etc., it can give us precise predictive maintenance capabilities and also manage load balance, right? Dynamically manage the cooling loads. So AI is going to definitely play a critical role in not just in data center industry. I'm sure it will be across the board in every industry that has a machine, running the operations.
Okay. Well, thank you. Got a question here that is for Satish. How is CyrusOne bridging the gap between IT and OT?
Like I mentioned previously, especially adopting ISA 95 architecture is how we are bridging by enabling integrations between operational technology, control systems, etc. Providing that relevant information to our business applications and business intelligence portals, etc. We are able to make much more rapid, informed decisions, and taking any kind of guesswork and any kind of anomalies can be avoided, and errors can be avoided. So we are leveraging ISA 95 architecture essentially to connect all our systems together.
Sounds good. Look, I've got a couple questions here for John. I'm just going to combine them into basically one question. First part of it was, what's Schneider doing with DC power at this point in time? And the second question is, define digitize for our audience as how it's applied by Schneider. What does it mean when Schneider says digitize?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to start with the second question first, and then come back to the DC power question. Digitize to Schneider, it's pretty straightforward for us, right? You can't manage it if you can't measure it. So Schneider Electric is the leading energy management company in the entire world, right? So digitize to us goes across the entire value chain, right? Whether that is helping to monitor third-party equipment that doesn't have digital capabilities, that has no ability to talk, right? We can retrofit our own intelligence against that equipment. Digitize could also be taking existing data from units and helping customers understand how to modernize and where best to spend dollars and get the best bang for your buck. Or digitize could mean being able to drive a more efficient construction process because we're driving specs digitally through a shared process, or tying together carbon footprint of equipment that you can use, or materials that you can use in designing a new site, a new data center. So when you're making these trade-offs between one cement manufacturer versus another, not only do you understand the cost, but you understand the carbon implications from a design perspective. So, I mean, digitize really is, it's the whole, goes across the whole gamut of it. It really is quite a wide scope, from software to hardware to services, right? We're trying to help our customers digitize everywhere, whether that's our hardware or not. So again, that's my take on it. Now, when it comes to DC power, you may be posing this to the wrong person. I'm one of the few non-hardware people that you'll find from Schneider Electric. So I can tell you what we do with it from a software perspective, right? I'm not a hardware expert. I know we can help meter DC power. I know we can help model it in our DCIM software. And I know we can help monitor it and do some predictive AI against it. So we can help you digitize and read that DC power. As far as what our other offers are beyond there, I'd have to do some homework to get there, Dave. And maybe we can get back to the gentleman who asked that question, or the person who asked that question.
Thank you. Great, thanks. Question that, actually, it's a good question. Does the Energy Efficiency Directive apply in the US or North America?
It doesn't, not yet, no. I think, it's no secrets. Many times you see Europe and EMEA kind of lead the way when it comes to sustainability, especially when you talk about regulations. I don't think that's any secret. So right now it only applies inside the European Union. I think, obviously, with the California bills that we talked about, we're seeing some of that start over here in the US, but you can definitely see it coming down the roadway, right? I think 5-7 years ago, if you asked IT and data centers about sustainability, you had some leading edge people who had their eyes on it, but it is much, much more real today. And it's going to become more real in the future as we get closer. So no, the EED does not apply today, but you have companies who do business in the US and do business globally. So parts of their business are going to have to do it, whether or not they're global or not. So that's an interesting piece there as well.
Okay. You've been talking a lot about your fact you're a software guy. So what role can a comprehensive DCIM strategy play in making your company more sustainable, your data center, your business, et cetera?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think number one, for someone who depends on where you're at in that journey, right? Driving sustainability, I think, could be a journey. And I'd love to get Satish's input on this as well, because Satish has some experience with DCIM as well at his current role and previous roles. But for me, again, I kind of go back to if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And being able to link together the entire value chain from IT all the way over to OT and begin to understand the impact of making changes in a certain site or in a data center, or understanding how much power is actually being used on a per asset or per rack or per data center basis. Many customers don't have that ability today. So the ability to digitize that information, whether it's our hardware or not, the ability to report on it, the ability to create those shared dashboards, and maybe most importantly, the ability to understand the impact of the changes you're making. Because the sustainability journey, it doesn't matter where you start, it just matters that you're improving over time, right? So it's that reduction over time, it's that driving lower. You can only do that if you begin measuring. So I think that's my take on it. Satish, I'd be interested in your take. I know you have some experience there.
Yeah, I've seen DSIM play a very critical role over the last 5 to 10 years, I would say. Prior to that, DSIM was purely, asset management, anything inside white space, right? Whether it's branch circuit management or asset management in Iraq. But that has changed quite a bit with the latest DSIM technologies. EcoStructure product is one of them. Integrating cooling sensor data, it plays a huge role in operational dynamics, right? Especially the computational fluid dynamics is what we use quite a bit in understanding, how to manage the cooling infrastructure dynamically, and and it also helps us give us very valuable data in managing our PU efficiencies, right? The data at its core is the key for many sustainability efforts. It is essentially the cornerstone for us that ensuring every watt is accounted for and used as efficiently as possible. It not only helps in reducing carbon footprint, but also in cutting down operational cost as well, making sustainability both an environmental and economic win for us.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We're coming up towards the end of our time, so let me throw it back to you, John. Do you have any closing statements? You all, or Satish, do you have things you feel that the audience really needs to focus on? You unpacked a lot of stuff in this session. So is there anything you think that the audience really needs to focus on?
I think sustainability is a journey. We believe it starts with digital and digitization. We're trying to help customers along that journey. That's very important to us. Satish did a great job covering, I think, it from a customer point of view, which is always really, really interesting. We have a slide here that can give you some steps on how to get started, right? There's some research papers, some white papers that have been written around if you want to better understand the sustainability metrics. If you want to look at it from how this challenges a CIO, or maybe the steps to begin calculating all of the IT energy that your current site is using, right? There's ways out there and tools out there that are very easy to leverage that can help you do that. So there were some great questions today that was really helpful for us to kind of step through that and better give you an overview of it from our perspective. If you do have any further questions, feel free to continue to reach out to myself or Satish. We are making these slides available, so feel free to download those slides. And I think with that, David, I think we're wrapping here a little bit early, maybe giving everyone back another 5-10 minutes or so in their day.
Okay, well, thank you, John. Thank you, Satish. We haven't run out of time quite, but if there are any questions that you posted that we didn't answer, we will get back to you offline. This concludes the presentation, and I'd like to thank both John and Satish for the informative information they were able to provide to us today. And of course, I'd like to thank our sponsor for this session, Schneider Electric. Once again, please do fill out the survey that will pop up when this session ends. We appreciate your time filling out those surveys, and we use them to provide guidance for future seminars. Don't forget, if you're going to the next session, don't miss it. You can join that by exiting this instance of the webinar software, going back to the agenda, and clicking on the View Session button. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Attendees, thank you for coming.
Thank you, David. Thanks, Satish.
Thank you, John.